Hey everyone, welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show. Second show for the day. You get a twofer. We're going to be talking about several things. Number one, the Vatican Cardinal, Cardinal Parolin, the head of the Secretariat of State, has actually come back from a Ramadan dinner. Don't know what he was doing there, but he was at a Ramadan dinner and was questioned on the Pope's potential resignation. Does he have any plans on resigning? And he offers his commentary on that. We're going to take a look at what the Secretary of State has to say there. After that, we're going to take a look at the Vatican's plans to hold in 2028 an ecclesial assembly, pretty much the first of its kind as part of a follow-up to the Synod on Synodality. So we're going to see what that is all about. After that, we're going to take a look at a development that has taken place with the situation in Gaza. Ceasefire breaks down, and now over 400 are dead, including babies. And Netanyahu says this is only the beginning, and he also indicates in a follow-up video, from now on, negotiations will only take place under fire. So we're going to talk about all of this today. But first, I want to remind you, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I really would appreciate your support for the channel. And, of course, hit the like button, too. Also, hit the bell for notifications. I think a lot of people aren't doing that, and so they're not getting notifications on when I go live. And sometimes I go live out of nowhere, like right now. So if you want to be in tune with what's going on with the show, you need to hit the bell for notification, even if you're already subscribed. Good to see you, Victoria, in the chat. She says, yo, Mike. Great to have you. Let me share my screen, and let's talk about Cardinal Parolin. Again, Vatican Secretary of State, kind of the number 2 in the Vatican under Pope Francis, was attending a Ramadan dinner, a Muslim iftar dinner, where at the end of the evening, Muslims will have a dinner breaking their fast. He was attending the dinner and was caught by a reporter and asked some questions. So Cardinal Parolin says, no discussion of resignation by Pope Francis. Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin denied during his 3 recent visits to Pope Francis, who has been hospitalized at Rome's Gemelli Hospital since February 14. They had discussions about the possibility of the Pope's resignation. He says he denies that they had discussions. I'm sorry, I misread that. He had 3 different visits, and they did not discuss that. He says, no, not at all. So this was never something that was on the table. The Cardinal replied when asked by reporters at the Iftar Ramadan table event held at the St. Regis Hospital in Rome on Monday. Again, that raises a whole lot of questions in and of itself. They just kind of dropped that out of nowhere. And I do have some questions why a Catholic Christian cardinal is attending an iftar dinner where Muslims break their fast. Somebody asked me, do you think he's Muslim? I said, no, I don't think so. I actually think it's much more likely if you have a clergyman who's not actually a Catholic, and I'm not saying that's the case here, but if you have one who is not actually Catholic, I think it's much more likely they're an atheist than Muslim, but that's my personal opinion. And a whole nother topic for a different show. Be that as it may, they just kind of dropped that out of nowhere and didn't have any further elaboration on it. It just leaves a lot of people scratching their head, I'm sure. Parolin addressed the 88-year-old pontiff's health and his ability to lead the Catholic Church. I think we should go by the medical reports, he says, because they're the ones that tell us exactly what the Pope's condition is. The Cardinal added that during his last visit to Pope Francis's Gemelli Hospital on March 9th, he found him in better condition. So there have been some medical improvements with Pope Francis. He's not out of the woods yet. He is still receiving oxygen. He's not on the mechanical ventilator at night. So there is some improvement, but again, not enough to be discharged. So still there. It's been about a month too, so it's very concerning. He says, I saw him a week ago, so I didn't have the opportunity to see him again. I found him better than the first time, he related, although he emphasized that this was only his personal observation and that it is necessary to follow the official information provided by the doctors. Regarding the governance of the Catholic Church and the Holy Father's role in decision making, Perone explained that although they have been unable to discuss issues in depth during their conversations in the hospital during his delicate health, the due to his delicate health, the pontiff was presented with several situations that required his decision, and the Pope gives his instructions. So, in other words, the Pope is alert. He knows what's going on. He's still able to run the church. He's still able to give his instructions. So that resignation document that we know he has, because Pope Francis has talked about it, that will kick in if he's not able to govern the church anymore due to a medical need, that has not yet kicked in. Because evidently he's still giving instructions and is able to understand questions and evaluate the situation and make decisions and so on and so forth. It also says the Vatican Secretary of State also expresses concern about Europe's rearmament plan and its possible consequences. He says, when you rearm, sooner or later, you have to use the weapons. He also recalled that the Holy See has also advocated for disarmament. This has always been the policy of the Holy See to insist on controlled and across-the-board disarmament on the international level. So one cannot be happy with the direction things are taking. Perelman also addressed the situation in Ukraine and expresses hope that the dialogue process could move forward without obstacles. So maybe we'll get some clarification, though, on the real highlight of the day here. And that isn't so much the news about the Pope not resigning. It's more the Cardinal, the Secretary of State, the number 2 in the Vatican, is attending a Ramadan dinner. I want to know more about that. All right, let's move forward to CNA's article here where they go over what the ecclesial assembly is supposed to be. This is going to take place in 2028, and they give a really helpful breakdown of this. This is some news that has kind of flown under the radar. Pope Francis has decided to have an ecclesial assembly in 2028 evaluating the Synod on Synodality and its results. So the Vatican announced on Saturday its latest plans for the Synod on Synodality, ongoing implementation, a multi-year accompaniment and evaluation process leading to a church-wide assembly at the Vatican in October 2028. Initiated by Pope Francis in 2021, the Synod on Synodality was a multi-year worldwide process of the Catholic Church focused on exploring the question, what steps does the Spirit invite us to take in order to grow in our journeying together? The Synod went through diocesan, national, and continental stages in phase 1, the consultation phase. Then phase 2, global month-long assemblies were held at the Vatican in October 2023 and 2024 as part of the next discernment phase. The 2024 Synod gathering, which included for the first time both bishops and non-bishops as voting members, was largely focused on questions discussing what processes, structures, and institutions are needed in a missionary synodal church. At the end of the month, Francis chose to ratify the Assembly's final report rather than write his own post-synodal apostolic exhortation. Very unusual, the first time this has happened. We knew it's possible. It's in the Code of Canon Law, but I don't know if anyone saw it coming. The third and final phase of the Synod on Synodality is the implementation phase, underway now. Study groups examining 10 areas of possible reform based on suggestions from the 2023 Assembly are part of the implementation of the Synod. Some of the study groups are expected to deliver their final reports in June. On March 15th, the Vatican Synod Office announced an additional initiative of the implementation of the Synod on Synodality, an over 3-year accompaniment and evaluation process that will begin in churches and dioceses, move to national and international gatherings, and eventually culminate in a global gathering at the Vatican in 2028 with the approval of Pope Francis, who signed off on the process from the hospital, St. Gemelli Hospital. On March 11th, the General Secretariat of the Synod sent a letter to all the Catholic churches of the Latin Rite bishops and Eastern Rite exarchs, as well as bishops' conferences presidents explaining the next project. The timeline of the accompaniment and evaluation process is as follows. This May will see the publication of a support document for the implementation phase with guidelines for its use. From June 2025 to December 2026, there will be implementation paths in local churches. First half of 2027, there will be evaluation assemblies in dioceses around the world. Second half of 2027, we'll see evaluation assemblies in national and international bishops' conferences. And then after that, evaluation assemblies at the continental level will take place in the first half of 2028. June 2028, we'll see a publication of the Instrumentum Laboris, a working document for the October 2028 assembly. And finally, in October 2028, the Vatican will host the Ecclesial Assembly. According to Cardinal Gresh, the Secretary General of the Synod and author of the letter about the accompaniment and evaluation process, synodal teams made up of priests, deacons, and consecrated men and women and lay people, accompanied by their bishops, will organize and conduct the process in each diocese. Gresh said in his letter, the implementation phase of the Synod on Synodality should be understood not as merely the application of directives from above, but rather as a process of reception of the final document in 2024. So how well has it been received? What has actually taken place? What has the Synod on Synodality's document actually done on the parish level, on the diocesan level, on the international level? It is essential to move forward together as a whole church, the Cardinal emphasized. Pope Francis, in his final speech to Synod participants in 2024, said there are and there will be discussions to be made. I then will continue to listen to the bishops and churches entrusted to them. He says, this is not the classic way of postponing decisions indefinitely. It is what corresponds to the synodal style with which even the Petri ministry is to be exercised. So we will find out more about this very, very soon, I suspect. More information will come out from the Vatican, but that's a quick basis on the process and the Ecclesial Assembly that will take place in 2028. Victoria says, should I be taking the Malachi prophecy seriously? No, that has been disproven already. Victoria also says, I find that Ramadan dinner a bit worrisome. Indeed, indeed. Jerome says, good evening. Good to see you, Jerome. All right, so let's take a look at this next bit here from the New York Times. I'm going to share my screen. So the situation with Gaza, ceasefire is now over. A ceasefire breaks down with deadly strikes. Netanyahu says this is only the beginning. The Israeli prime minister indicated he was open to more talks with Hamas, but said that they would take place under fire. In fact, there's a video of him saying that right here. Let me show it to you. He says from now on, Israel will act against Hamas with increasing force. And he says from now on, negotiations will take place only under fire. So, wow, okay. The assault in Gaza overnight Tuesday killed over 400 people, local officials said. In fact, the parish that Pope Francis talks to every night in Gaza, the Catholic parish, has reported that they heard really loud bombings nearby. And so it actually took place near the Catholic parish in Gaza. And they've given their own firsthand account of it that I think you can find in an article on CNA, in fact. So it continues. Prime Minister Netanyahu said deadly airstrikes on Tuesday that ended a fragile truce were only the beginning, indicating that intense attacks on the Gaza Strip will not stop. Just before 2:30 local time on Tuesday, Israeli forces launched extensive aerial attacks across the Gaza Strip. More than 400 Palestinians, including children, were killed. According to the Gazan Health Ministry, whose figures do not differentiate between civilians and combatants. The attacks followed weeks of fruitless negotiations aimed at extending the fragile ceasefire, which paused 15 months of devastating fighting in the territory. Israel and Hamas were supposed to be holding talks on the truce's second phase, which would end the war and free more hostages, but had seen little progress. From now on, negotiations will only be led under fire, Netanyahu said. Hamas accused Israel of deciding to overturn the ceasefire agreement and exposing the hostages taken from Israel and being held in Gaza to an unknown fate. Hamas, however, did not immediately respond militarily to the attacks. In Gaza, the intensity of the bombardment recalled the war's earliest days when Israel launched a relentless wave of airstrikes in response to the Hamas-led October 7th attack. All of Gaza shook, a resident of Gaza City said. The next phase of the ceasefire was supposed to free more hostages during the Hamas-led attack on October 7th. But Israeli leaders said they were unwilling to stop the fighting until the end of Hamas's rule in the territory. Hamas said it could compromise on civilian control, but showed little inclination to disband its battalions of armed fighters or send leaders into exile. Daniel Shapiro, former U.S. ambassador, said Hamas's insistence on holding on to hostages as leverage in Netanyahu's politically driven refusal to proceed with phase 2 of the ceasefire, which calls for an end to the war and the release of all living hostages, led to the escalation. Hurting Hamas's military and releasing our hostages are not contradictory objectives. They're intertwined, Netanyahu said. The White House press secretary Caroline Levitt said Israel had consulted the White House before launching the strikes. So evidently the White House is, to one degree or another, on board with this. Your tax dollars at work, guys. Shifting gears here, I want to show you a quick clip that I came across. A Jewish rabbi sends a message to Christians. I thought y'all would be interested in his thoughts here. Take a look at this one. This one is pretty interesting.
I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. We're all God's firstborn. We're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs.
Quite the statement. I thought Judaism teaches that only one God should be worshipped, but evidently everyone who is Jewish needs to be worshipped according to this rabbi. And because it sounds like they're laying down their lives for us in Israel every day. That's noteworthy, I guess, to point out that views like this are circulating. A little disturbing to see a rabbi say such things. And I certainly want to hear from y'all's reaction of the comments here. What do you think? Do you think all Jews need to be worshipped because they're all dying for our sins in Israel? Or do you think that this is absolutely despicable and abhorrible and needs to be condemned? I'd love to hear from you. I want to hear your comments. Put them in the comment section. You agree? You disagree? Think this is wild stuff? You on board with it? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button too. Much more content, many more coming tomorrow. So stay tuned for more. Hope y'all enjoyed this video that I was able to sneak in today. Second show for the day. A bonus, a twofer. All right, that's going to do it. See you tomorrow. God bless. Hey, have you been benefiting from this channel, but you're not supporting it?
You're definitely guilty.
Get over to patreon.com/Resigning Theology and support this channel if you've been benefiting from the content.
Did I say get it done now?
I mean right now.
And if you can't support the show financially, you should at least be subscribed, right? Am I right or am I right?
Yeah, I think he's right.
I'm right. So go and hit the subscribe button right now.